In professional software application development, one of the most important thing is dividing your software application responsibility into different layers. If you see at this moment, our customer application does have that layers. In other words, our customer application at this moment does follow that principle of dividing responsibility into different layers. So if you see at this moment, we have our views, which is there in this folder, right? So our view is into a different layer. We have our models, which are into a different folder, or I'll say into different layers. We have our data access layer, which is again a different class file altogether. And then we have the controllers, which are again in a different folder. But I would like to go one step ahead. I would like to take each one of these layers and move them into separate project files. Now, one of the things which will come to your mind is already our software application is divided into proper layers. They are segmented into proper layers. Why do we need to take these layers and move them into project files? What is the need of it? Now take this scenario. Let us say we are developing a lightweight console application of this customer application. So at this moment, this customer application is a web application. Let us say that, we want to develop a lightweight console based desktop application of the customer application, right? So let us say you go ahead and you add a new project, which is a console application. So you want to create a lightweight desktop application which runs locally in the user's machine. So you go ahead and you start creating this customer desktop application. Okay. Now, as a software developer, I would like to follow the best practices. In other words, I want to increase reusability. I do not want duplicate code. So what I would like to do is I would like to reuse whatever components I have created in the web application. So in this customer application or in this customer web application, whatever components are already created, I would like to reuse them as much as possible in my desktop application. So what I do is I go ahead and I add a reference to my customer web application over here. So once you have referred the customer web application in your console application, so you will see here that your customer web application is now accessible inside this console application, and you can see that you have access to all the modules internally. You can see that you can now access the data access layer, you can now access the middle layer, you can now access the controllers, you can now access routing, etc. But now think logically. This is a console application. That means a type of a desktop application. A desktop application needs models. Yes, absolutely. It needs those customer classes. It needs those user classes. It needs data access layer. Yes, I need to do insert, update and delete into my RDBMS. But does it need controllers? But does it need these filters? Does it need routing? Does it need web API? So a lot of these components are unnecessarily referenced here. And why they are unnecessarily referenced? Because at this moment, all these layers, all these logical layers are lying in one physical C# project. So at this moment, if you see, all these logical layers are lying in this one big C# project. Now, what is a good architecture? A good architecture is that architecture, which provides the flexibility, wherein the client or the consumer can pick and choose what components he needs. A good architecture is that architecture which follows abstraction and encapsulation. Abstraction means show only what necessary things. Encapsulation means hide complex things. And over here now, if you see, when I refer the customer web application, I'm able to see everything. I'm able to use all the components, and some of those components can confuse my developers who are coding in console application. A console application developer, it is very much possible he has no idea of HTTP protocol. So what is the point of showing him a web API class? What is the point of showing him a controller class? What is the point of showing him a config class, right? So So to achieve that, what we really have to do here is we have to go and move those logical layers into physical C# projects, into physical self-contained C# projects, so that I can refer only those C# projects and I get access to only those components, and that will avoid any kind of confusion in my console application, right? So in other words, I need to go and move each one of these layers here, each one of these logical layers. For example, we have the model here, right? So we will go and create a new C# project where we will move these model classes. We will go and create a C# project where we will go and move this data access layer component. So if we are able to do that, then we have the ability to refer that individual C# projects, and we won't get unnecessary access to controllers and web API, etc. Now you must also be wondering that why do we need a separate video or a separate class for this to make understand people that we should be moving our necessary components into C# projects. We already know that whenever we want to create a separate self-contained library, we create a C# project and we add the necessary DLLs in that project or the necessary classes in that projects. So why do we need a separate class for this? So remember the way this MVC template is created, the models folder is right here. So what I've seen is, developers start adding those classes here, and by doing so, they end up into one big C# project. So I'm trying to emphasize the point here that go ahead and create different C# project, okay, and organize your project in a better physical structure. Okay, so I'm going to go here now and let us go here and add. So what we'll do is, let us first move the data access layer out and let us move the models out. So I'm going to go and add a new project, and this will be a class project. So I'll add actually two class projects, one for data access layer and one for model. So I'll select this class library. So let us say these are my models, right? And in the same way, let me go and add one more C# project here. So I'm going to go and add one more project, class library, and I will say this is my data access layer, right? And I will start moving all those codes out in these classes. So let us first move the model. So I'm going to go to the models here. I'm going to go and cut both of these files. I know it's very cruel way of doing it, but let's do that. I'm going to cut these files and paste here in the models, right? And the models classes will belong to the namespace models. Okay, so the customer class and these, right, I would like that they belong to the namespace model. So that is already done, and you can see there are some errors here because we need to refer the data annotation namespace, right? So let us do that. So let us so let me go and add a reference to system.dataAnnotation, right? Remember, data annotation helps us to do validation. So for that we need to refer this system.componentModel.dataAnnotation, right? Great. Okay, so there it is. So let me just go and compile this model here, only the model. I know that the other things can fail, so I'm going to go and rebuild only the model, and let us see if it is succeeded or not. Let's see. You can see rebuild all started. Okay, done. Good. So the model is now referenced, is now moved to a separate C# project, and what we have to do now here is we have to take this model and refer in our web application, right? So let me add a reference of the model in my web application. Also, now that we have moved this customer application into a separate C# project, so you can see that we have this customer class here. We would like to go and change the namespace now to models, right? Because you can see now the namespace is still the same, customer web application. We would like to go and change this, right? So let me go and change this to the namespace models. So let me go here and make this as models, and this change I would like to reflect it across the C# project. So you can see here I've said that rename the customer web application to models, right? Yes, to that, right? So let me now go and build it. I do expect some errors over there. So, right, so this is also done. This class1.cs is not needed. Let us go and delete this. Right, now let us go and build the project. We would get some errors because we have changed the namespace altogether. So rebuild all succeeded. That is great. Let us go and just check. For example, in our web API. Yes, so you can see that he is now using the namespace models and our customer class is now taken. So if I go and just check, where is he taking the customer class from? So you can see now the customer class now belongs to the models namespace and not to the web application, right? Great, nice, good. And in the same way, what I've done is I have moved the data access layer file as well in the data access layer project here, right? And you can see that I've done one big drastic step here. I've taken one big drastic step here. I have deleted the models folder. You can see that from this customer application, I've deleted the models folder. Why? Because now I want to make this project more clean, right? So I don't want that models folder to be there. If I have the models folder there, tomorrow some developer can probably go and add a class of models over there, right? So let that be very clear that the models have to be added now in a separate C# project. So you can see that from here, even I deleted the folders, right? So I have the data access layer here, but now the data access layer will have problems, right? The first thing is the data access layer needs the namespace of models. It needs the namespace of system.data. So let us start adding those. So I'm going to go and add a reference first thing of the models. So there it is. Right. So some errors will go off. Okay. Also, we need to add the reference of the system.data namespace. So let us do that. So let us go to the assemblies and system.data.entity. There it is. So again, some sets of errors will go off. Nice. Also, we need to reference the necessary classes for DB context. Now for DB context, you need to refer this two DLLs over here. One is entity framework and one is entity framework .sql server. So I'm going to go and copy this two DLLs and I will add a reference. So I'll say browse here. Now I've copied the path of those DLLs from that customer application and let me give the direct path here. So I'll just say Control V. I will add it. Okay. So there it is. Also, we need to add reference of entity framework.sql server, right? So let us again browse and there the DLL is. So let us add both of them. I'll say okay. And now that error should go off. So for the DB context, you need reference of these two DLLs. One is entity framework and the other one is entity framework.sql server. So you can see that the errors have gone off. That is nice. Also the namespace is models.dal. I don't like this name, so let us keep it like just dal, or must be data access layer. Actually it is context, but fine, data access layer. Okay. And customers here, you can see that we are getting some errors here for users and this. Let us go and check, where is our user class line. User class is also in, so customer is in models, so let us make the user also in models. You can see it is now models.models. This is right. Okay, let me go and rebuild the complete project. Let us see what happens. We'll get some errors, we'll fix it, don't worry. And there are the errors. So you can see, let us double click on each one of these errors. So first thing, yes, it is not models now, not models.models, it is model, right? Models. So let us go and correct all of these errors. Right. At some moment of time, it is always a good idea to go and start tidying up your code. Now also you can see that this in the web application we need to add a reference of the data access layer. So let us do that. So let us go to the solution and add data access layer. You can see that how our application is now becoming now getting divided into physical layers, right? So this is data access layer, this is models, right? And here also now it is just DAL. So lots of changes there, but it's fine. This is only one time, and once you do this, your application will become better. So when it comes to long-term maintenance, when it comes to ROI, that you want your application to stay there for a longer time, when developers leave a project and they go somewhere else, right, it becomes very easy to do a knowledge transfer because your application is so well organized, right? So there it is, and we'll make it data access layer. Right. Build this, keep building, keep resolving. So there it is. Okay, it's nice. Right, I have one error now left. So I have fixed almost everything, and you can see that now the rebuild should succeed. Okay, so you can see rebuild all succeeded. Good. So there we are now. You can see now how beautiful the application looks, right? So we have, I can remove this desktop application for now. Okay, so I'm going to go and remove this. You can see now how beautiful the application looks. So we have our business layer or models in a separate library. We have our data access layer in a separate library. We have our views and controllers in a separate project, right? So let me go and run this project. Let us see that if we don't have any issues. So there our application is running. So let us quickly check if we are able to see all the functionalities. Yes, you can see that our search screen is working. You can see that our data entry screen is working as well. Great. So if you see now, our project is divided into 3 physical layers. So this application or this project file here, that is the customer application project file, has all our views and controllers. This project file, that is models, has our middle layer, has our models, has our business logic. And this layer, data access layer, has our insert, update, data access layer component. So you can see now all our 3 layers are divided into separate physical layers. So if somebody wants to just use the data access layer, he can just reference this. If somebody wants to use just the business logic, he can reference this. So you can see, because our logical layers are now put into separate physical layers, we can pick and choose what we want to use, and we don't have to refer all the components unnecessarily. Now the project which has the UI part, that is the customer application project which has the UI part, it also has one more thing called as the web API. Now if you watch very closely, this web API is an API which is with only data, right? It has nothing to do with UI. If you remember, we said that web API exposes data in a JSON format, it does content negotiation, etc. So how about going one step ahead now and moving this web API also into a different project? So what will happen is this customer application then becomes a pure UI project. It has the controller which are related to the UI, it has the views, and the web API is a different project which actually just gives out data, right? So we would like to move this customer web API controller from this project into a different C# project. Okay, so we will have one layer which is for the UI part. So that means this customer application is now for the UI part. We will have one layer, web API layer, which actually exposes out data in a JSON format, right? And then we have the data access layer and we have the models. Okay, so what I'll do is let me go and add a project here. So I'm going to go and add a project. So let us go and select web and let us go and select ASP.NET web application. So I'll say that this is customer web API. So this project will only have the web API. So you can see that I have selected this web API project here. Okay, and I will say okay. You can see the customer web API project created. So what we'll do is in this customer web API project, we will move this customer web API controller.cs, right? So all our web API calls are in this, all the post and get calls are in this class file, right? So I'm going to go and cut this from here and I'm going to go and paste this over here. Paste. Also let us go and delete these controllers here, the default controllers what are created. So I'm going to go and select both these controller classes and delete them so that we do not have unnecessary controller classes lying in our project, right? So you can see that there our customer web API controller is now moved into a separate project called as customer web API. Now this web API needs two things because it gives out data. It needs the models and it needs the data access layer. So let us go and reference both of these layers here. So I'm going to go and add a reference to the DAL and the models here. So let us go to the solution and let us go and add reference to DAL and let us go and add reference to the models, right? And let us go and build this project, right? So rebuild the solution. Let us see if, so you can see rebuild started and it should build successfully, right? So once it has built successfully, what we'll do is let us go and test this customer web API controller. Oh, you can see there are lots of errors over there and these errors are understood because we also need to have reference to the system.data.entity. We need to have the reference to the other things as well, right? So let us go and add a reference to the system.data.entity, and so one is we need to have reference to the entity framework classes, and one is we need to have reference to the system.data.entity. Because this customer web API is referencing the data access layer, so it also needs references to the entity framework classes. So three classes are there. One is system.data.entity and the other one is entity framework and entity framework.sql server. Okay, so I've referenced all of these three classes, and let us go and again rebuild the solution. Let us see now. So rebuild all started, and rebuild all succeeded. So you can see that rebuild all succeeded. Good. And what we'll do is, let us go and set this customer web API as startup project, and let us go and test, if we are able to see the data or not in the browser, right? So let us go here and let us try to make a get. Remember, the web API had that post and get method. So what we'll do is, let us go and try to hit this get over here, and let us try to see that do we see the list of customers or not, right? So let me do a control F5 here. So the way to run a web API from the browser is, you have to say API/customers, and then you can do the post and the get, right? So I've done a control F5 here. So to run the web API, we'll say here API/customer, and you can see that it is not showing us the data. Can you guess why it is not showing us the data? It is not showing us the data because we also need the connection string, right? Now remember, if you're using entity framework in a custom mode, or if you're using code first, right, then in your config file, either it's a web config file or app config file, you need to make an entry of the connection string using the data access layer name. So we need to go and copy this connection strings from here, and we need to paste this connection strings in the web API project. So I'm going to go to the web config file here in the web API project, and I'm going to go and put the connection strings over here. So the connection string should be with the same name of the class name. So you can see this is data access layer here. You can see the name here as DAL, right? So just go and close this. So you can see here the name is entered as data access layer, and it's pointing to my, so you can see here this is the name of data access layer, and it is pointing to the connection string here. And also we can go and remove the connection string from here, right, from the UI project. Okay, so this name should be same as the name of your data access layer class file, this, right? Great. So it's now all set. Let me rebuild the solution. Let us go and try to run this project again, and let us see if we are able to see the data or not. Could not load file. Why? Okay. There's some problems there, and I think this problem is because of the compilation which is happening simultaneously at the back. So I did the build here, and I was trying to run the project from the browser, so that's why it was throwing those weird errors. But you can see now the compilation has finished at the back end, and I can see my data here from the customer web API, right? So now we have a separate project for web API, and the web API is hosted on a separate URL. Remember, our user interface is all in this customer application. So very quickly, so our user interface is in this port running, right? And our web API is now in this port. So remember that your user interface is in this localhost 1248, and your web API is running on 2464. So you can see now they are physically complete separate. So all my user interface will be loaded from this project, right, from this URL, and all my data will be coming from this URL. Okay, so I have even decoupled the web API into a separate physical entity. Now the next step is, we need to go and make call to this web API from this UI, right? So if you remember, in our customer.js file, so very quickly, if you browse to our customer.js file, so in the customer application, our customer.js file at this moment is referencing the URL, which is the old one. You can see it is saying /API and then customer name, right? So that means it is referencing the UI web API, right? So let us go and copy this URL and let us go and make changes over here. So the URL now will be this. Later on we'll see how to remove this hard coding. At this moment, it is hard coded. Later on I'll explain you how to make this hard coding parameterized, or how you can put them into a configuration in Angular. Okay, so at this moment let us go and just copy paste it. Let us make this code working first thing. So and some of our searches have the customer name, so ensure that those are preserved. So you can see that those query strings needs to be preserved, right? Okay, good. So looks like now we are all set. So let us go back and let us try to do a search customer and let us see what happens. So you can see that our customer screen is running, but we are not able to see any output. So if I do a search customer, I don't see anything happening, right? So let us do a Control-Shift-I. Let us see that what is the error at the back end. And you can see that we have some red signs here. It says that I cannot load this API/customer because you do not have access to the resource. So it says access control allow origin error. So first let us try to understand that what this error is and how to go and rectify the same. Now if you visualize our current architecture, our UI is hosted on this port, that is localhost 1248, and our web API is hosted on this port 2464. So if you ask me, technically both of them are hosted on different domains at this moment because they are running inside this local host. That's why it is shown by port number. But in real time scenario, when you actually go and make it live on production server, then both of these will be hosted on different domain. Now if you have such kind of a scenario, when your code which is hosted on a different domain is trying to make a call to a web API which is hosted on a different domain, then you get this error, cross origin error. It says that a code which is loaded on a different domain cannot make a call to a web API which is running on a different domain. For that, the source means this web API should allow it to do it. So in other words, we have to go to this web API and do some changes by which he will allow to make such kind of a cross origin call. Because remember, or think about it, you have a web API which is hosted and anybody can make a call from outside domain. That is not a good sign, right? So for security purpose, they do not allow codes which are loading on different domain to make a call automatically on a web API. So the web API has to go ahead and say that, yes, I'm loosening my security and I would allow the code which is running on a different domain to make a call. So for that, we need to go and make some changes to the web API. Let us do it. So in our web API, we need to go and create an attribute. You can see that I'm creating an attribute here, right? If you remember, in one of the previous videos, Mr. Sukesh sir had explained what exactly are action filters and when do we need them, right? So actually we need to go and create an action filter attribute. So you can see that I have created a class here called as allow cross site. Allow cross site. Okay. And this allow cross site, what it does is it actually inherits from this class action filter attribute. Okay. And in this, what I'm doing is I'm saying that in the response headers, I'm saying access control allow origin for all the calls. Star means any kind of call which comes from outside the domain, please allow it to happen, right? So I'm going to go and you can see that we have some red signs here. So we need to go and just take up the appropriate namespaces. So there it is. And let me just go and build this. Oh, there are some errors here as well. Let us correct them. Right. So let me go and build this solution. And this attribute, I need to go and decorate it on the controller here. So I'll say here, allow cross-site. Okay. If you wish, what you can do is you can also go and decorate on the individual methods as well. For example, you will say, okay, just allow cross-site, when you are doing a get. So what you can do is you can just go and take this allow cross-site and decorate it on the individual actions as well. Okay. So at this moment, not needed. So at this moment, I'm just enabling the cross-site calls on the complete customer controller. Okay. So there it is. Everything is built. Everything is okay. Let us now try to go and run this. Okay. So let me say here. So let me go back to home. And let me hit the search customer again. So let me go and hit on search customer. And you can see now we are able to see the records. Nice. And if I click on add new customer, you can see again, I can see things here, right? Now, let me go and also check, if our update, insert and delete is working, because there is a small catch over there. So let me take up this record here, Shiv 11, and let me change this amount to 200. Okay. And let me say update customer. You can see it is not working, right? And if I do a Control Shift I, I am getting those errors. Means my search customer is working, my loading of the customer is working, but the time I go and try to do an update, it again gives me the same kind of an error, right? So what is happening here? So the error is coming. It's not your code problem. It is the problem with Chrome. Actually, it is not a problem also. I'll say rather it is a security feature given by Chrome. So in Chrome, when you are making any kind of cross origin calls, and even if the server allows it, right, Chrome puts a restriction on post, put and delete, right? So what you need to do is you need to go and run Chrome in a elevated mode, right? So you have to go and run Chrome and say that disable the web security for now, because I want to make a cross origin post, put and delete call as well, right? It is also possible that if you try to run in Internet Explorer or in Firefox, this code should run as it is. But at this moment, in order to run it in Chrome, you need to go and run your Chrome like this, saying that I want to go and disable the web security. So there it is. And the time you run this, it says that basically you are running this in a, your security will suffer, and I'm okay with that, right? So I'll just go and post my URL here. There it is. So let us say select, and let us change this to Shiva. And you can see now the values are updating, right? If I select this, if I say delete customer, you can see the values are also deleting as well, right? Nice. So this brings us to the end of lab 27, which is almost a 50 minutes, or I'll say a 1 hour video. It was a long video, but it was an important video, because when it comes to professional MVC project, one thing which you would like to do is structure your MVC project into proper physical and logical structures. And I hope that this video communicated that thought. I do understand that whatever architecture I've shown here is not the best one, but definitely it will help you to create one of those best. So it is a good kickstart to start with. I know that a lot of people can go ahead and add interfaces, you can add abstract classes, you can add additional more layers,
and a lot of other things, and you can make this architecture better, but that I will leave it to you, and I will leave it to your project nature, what you want to do. But I hope that this 1 hour video was fruitful. Now, what do we have for the coming up videos? So I'm going to talk about the coming up 3 videos now itself. So the first video which is going to come up next is a very small informational and a practical video which talks about a concept called as display modes in MVC. This display modes actually helps you to create mobile applications. So when you are talking about creating mobile application, this small display mode thing is very useful. The next video is by Mr. Sukesh sir, which talks about unit testing with MVC. If you look at our MVC architecture, the whole MVC architecture is you can put it into proper layers like controllers, views, and models. So one of the advantage of MVC is unit testing. You can take each one of these components and test them separately, right? So Sukesh sir is going to run you through some of those important scenarios of how to do unit testing using MVC. And the third video is on Angular actually, which will talk about a concept called as routing in Angular. So by using routing in Angular, you can achieve the single page application concept very easily. So these are the 3 videos, which we have lined up in the coming up series. So again, a small request. I know that this is a repeated request. Please go ahead and share your feedback, saying that you liked this video, you liked what of this part of the video, and what other videos you want in the MVC section. So you can go to facebook.com/questpond and you can put us the feedback over here. We are more than willing to hear you. And your appreciation is what I and Sukesh work for. So if you appreciate us, we do feel very good about it. And at the same time, if you criticize us, we would like to take those criticism and improve in our MVC course. So thank you so much. So the next 3 videos we have lined up: display modes, unit testing, and routing. Thank you.